Welcome to the Voices of Business, a Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce podcast. Nice to be with you. I am your host, Corey Nathan. So glad to be joined by my co-host, my pal, my partner in commerce, Joshua Maddux. Joshua, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
Not on any trips to another planet or around the world in 80
We're
days?
still on that? I thought we were done with that.
Yeah, we're going to move on. Okay. So the Voices of Business, SCV, is where we talk about business in the Santa Clarita Valley and really all over this country. But a lot of the business owners and business leaders, other community leaders we'll be speaking with are from right here in our hometown, the Santa Clarita Valley. And sometimes we don't just stick to business. We talk about leadership and management and life and anything else where the spirit takes us. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend, give us a good rating, leave a review. All of it helps get the word out so more people can participate in these conversations like the one we're having today with Troy Hooper, the Chief Executive Officer of Hot Palate, and I'm coming to learn has a number of other business holdings. So good to be with you, Troy. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be with both of you.
All right, so not to bury the lead, but you just invested in a local place, one of my favorite haunts, actually.
Yeah, so three couples, my wife and myself, and another couple, the Thompsons, and another couple, the Fleischers, bought Newhall Press Room. Bought the press room in Old Town Newhall down there next to Smokehouse across from the refinery. And, it's been there 7 or 8 years, and it was time for the current owners to move on, and they were looking for somebody who could come in there with some love and passion for it. I've been a great customer of it in the past, so is my partners. So, I'm not the operating partner on the day to day. Our partner Kelly Thompson is running the day to day with some support from Andrew and Corey, but they're in there with a new menu and brought a lot of the staff back and kept the good thing going, and hopefully we'll just improve on what was already there and give the community continue to give that community a place for gathering and sharing over great wine and food.
That's terrific. I can't wait to visit again. But I was really curious. You're such an expert in this field. You're certainly a business leader. I was curious what initially led you down this path. Running a pretty sizable organization here in the States and having other investments. You having come from studying business, more broadly speaking, what ended up getting you in the direction of restaurants specifically?
Yeah, basically, I was born into it. My father had construction companies, and one of them specialized in restaurants, bars, and nightclubs, new builds and remodel, refurbishment, rebrandings. And so I grew up on the construction site of those types of businesses, and I thought I wanted to be an architect, just really following along those lines. And I really had a passion for cooking and learning how to throw a good party. My dad really just liked to throw a good party at the end of the day. I actually think he did that construction work so that he could just be the VIP anytime he walked into a restaurant, bar, nightclub anywhere in Miami. But I went to culinary school young. At 17, I went to culinary school and thought I wanted to be a chef. Ultimately, like many people, I just wanted to own my own restaurant. And I thought that was the life. And so I cooked for 6 years after culinary school and through business school. And I really got the entrepreneurial bug. I got the business bug in business school. Everybody in my family was entrepreneurs or had at one point or another run their own business, started their own thing. So it kind of just was all around me all the time. And I saw how my dad conducted his businesses, and his pride was that he never advertised a day in his life. I think he might have been in the white pages, with one liner, but it was all basically reputation or referral. And so growing up like that, I really had the bug to do my own thing. But, one thing that I learned very young and thankfully sat with me was that you have to have a foundation. You have to go get that education, and you have to get that life skills education. So I wasn't afraid to go and work, right? And kind of do all the jobs. I really wanted to do all the jobs in the industry, and I've done a lot of the jobs in the industry. And so I've just been climbing the ladder ever since. 32 years in the business, started as a busboy at Bennigan's in Miami, and have
I had a stint at Bennigan's up in Jersey when I was about
man.
19.
Hey, Bennigan's is coming back. It's been bought, and they're opening in Middle East and some other places too. But just love the business. Been in it my whole life, and just found different ways to find a way in it and learn all about it and make myself as well rounded as I can to put myself in a position of success in this industry.
You mentioned not afraid to work. I would imagine now being in a leadership position as an owner, as a CEO, that experience as a cook, that experience in the kitchen really has to serve you well to really understand your organization on the front lines, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. Look, the biggest thing that I think people need to really think about in when they look at their careers is you have to be willing to go back to zero. Just because you were the general manager of said business at said size, for said length of time, if you want to do the other thing or you want to achieve another level in another part of your industry or new industry, you got to be willing to start at the bottom again. And that's just something that I guess I was always willing to do. I was always willing to climb, reach a certain level of success and say, okay, I've done that. I understand that. I feel like I've mastered that area of the business. Let me go over here and do this thing. And that means I've been in hotels, resorts, private clubs, golf clubs, city clubs. I've been in fine dining, ultra fine dining restaurants, and I've been in QSR fast casual restaurants. And so every time you make that jump or you make that what you might think of as a lateral move or a move back, really what you're doing is setting yourself up to learn that new vertical part of the business again, or a new area of the business for the first time. And it's your opportunity to master it. I just love learning. So, I've never been afraid to sort of take those steps backwards to ideally ultimately leap forwards. Right.
Well, I think that's really what sets like a good leader apart is people who are willing to take that step back, do a job that like oftentimes there's this like career aspect of like I've already gone to school. I've done this level of service. I've done this level of a job. Like I'm not gonna take a demotion. I'm not gonna step back. Like there's like this mentality of that. But then I look at shows like Undercover Boss, where there's literally companies who the CEO of the company does exactly what we're talking about, where you take a step back, you work the front line, you whatever that situation is, and all of a sudden they go, oh, holy crap, like that one thing we were going to implement in the company that we thought was going to save us money is actually not going to save us money. It's going to cost us money and it's going to cause headache and grief for everybody who works on the front line. Like whatever that situation is. Um, there's a video I've seen recently. It's the Savannah Bananas, and they talk about how all their executive team does this
Right.
on a regular basis. Like you have to, if you're on the executive team, you have to go sit in plain clothes and sit in the stands, and like you have to wait in line to go get your food. You have to like find all the friction points in the system, experience them before you make a decision to change something. And I think that's like from a leadership perspective is so critical. And that's exactly like that's the element of what you're talking about, which is just that's where I think those businesses become so much more successful because not only does everybody in the executive team understand everything a lot better, but also the employees that you're working with also respect that more
Yeah.
because
1,000%. Yeah. You've got to be on the lines with them. Look, in the restaurant industry, it's really pretty common, but there are some restaurant brands that are iconic that are going out of business because they were run from the boardroom. Somebody had a cute idea to give away all the shrimp, and the company went out of business. Right. So,
we're not
you
talking specifics here.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see if they revive that thing. But it's a reality of when you run a business from a boardroom. Or no offense to all of my friends that are CFOs, but when you promote the CFO to the CEO, and it's really about dollars and cents, and you get away from the core customer, you get away from the stakeholder, which is the employee. You don't understand what's really going on in your business, and you don't understand what those decisions are, firsthand. Then you really are vulnerable to a lot of things, and really vulnerable to competition that is really building from the ground up. So I always call myself the best dressed busboy. I've really dressed down over the last few years since COVID, but I've always been a little overdressed kind of a guy, and I didn't matter what suit or pocket poof I was wearing. I'm always willing to get in there and clean the tables and talk with the guests and clear tables and run food. And if you don't do that, you just don't know what's going on. You can't have your eyes and ears to the ground if you're not in the room, right? So got to get out of the ivory tower.
For sure, for sure. Couple one quick observation. One of the businesses I'm very familiar with is the entertainment advertising business. Um, it's one of the companies that I've had since 1999 is a specialty has a specialty in in that industry, and the best agencies in that industry are what I've referred to as creative led and business supported, because really what they're being paid for, what works, what opens a movie or launches a TV show is great creative and great thinking. Now, there have been some companies that have run the company based on the P&L, based on the
Sure.
numbers. And yeah, maybe they can enter the major leagues of this industry, but they're not going to be transcendent. They're not going to be the leaders in the industry. They don't put creative first. The creative are merely the widgets that they're selling. And you could tell it. You could tell a difference, even an untrained eye, an audience member. And it shows up in the results. That said, I've had other experiences, as an owner of companies, and my least favorite phrase coming from an employee is "what you gotta understand."
Mhm.
so, so I don't want to hear that. Part of it is maybe I'm guilty, so it's convicting, but more often than not, it's a lack of communication. I'll put it
Sure.
diplomatic, a lack of communication. I was curious though, you did bring up, COVID, having business interests, across a few different, entities. How were you able to navigate through 2020, 2021, and, recovery thereafter?
I had a son in September of 2020, and I took care of him for 15 months. I did nothing work wise for about 15
Mm,
months, except for stay connected, talk with my colleagues in the industry, and really try to help everyone, help each other navigate. At the end of the day, lots of businesses closed. I had businesses close, but then I had a boom in my consulting practice, had a boom in my management practice, because post COVID, there was a lot of money in the system, a lot of PPP money, a lot of other types of money coming in. So there was a lot of reinvestment in the business, which was very, very good for the industry. Pepper Lunch, which is the brand that our holding company owns, that I work for, they bought that business in 2020 because it needed to sort of be saved, and so then again, an opportunity to take on something that was significant, pour into it, make significant investment, get the right leadership in place, and then go off and grow it. So there was a lot of good stories out of COVID, post COVID, especially 21, 22, 23. With reinvestment, and it's just a matter of putting yourself in the right position. If you have a foundation and you have a community and um, you have an understanding of what wins and what's vulnerable, then you're going to navigate stuff like that pretty well.
Joshua, I'm curious about your insights about the next question too. But with an organization like Hot Palette America or a larger corporation, there are ways I'm sure that you can use data and now AI to really enhance your offerings and how responsive you are to what the market, what your market is telling you. Are you able to use that understanding, if not the actual tools themselves, on more of a local business like some of the restaurants we have here in Newhall?
Yeah, 100%. So my first hire at Pepper Lunch was actually a technologist who's a specialist in UX and UI, but was really an early adopter and a student of AI. And so he actually started training AI models on my voice personally on this brand, Pepper Lunch, and training essentially bots or agents, AI tools to sort of scale our capacities. And so when we took over, we had three executive employees, and then we outsourced a lot of work to contractors. And then we've over time upscaled this business to have all the leadership elements in place and start to build out the teams. But in the meantime, we've been training AI this entire time. And so it took about 8 or 9 months. And as AI itself as a technology has advanced rapidly, it has also been absorbing all of the data, all of the content, all of the copy. Every conversation I have like this, I feed the AI the transcript and things like that. And so it got really, really smart pretty quick. And I'd say over the last 8 or 9 months, a good 95% of anything that's written at the company has been touched or started by AI and then revised by the leadership or whoever was touching it. And this is marketing, this is internal operations, this is franchise systems management, et cetera. And as far as as far as we started building a tool is basically an internal operating system for our own business that is AI engine driven. So the entire platform is managed by an AI agent that contextualizes 100% of the platform and everything we need in it, and does a lot of automation for us. So it's just about scalability for us. It's about doing more, better, faster, and taking the best cases and best learnings of the past and applying them to the future. And it's just, I've personally started working with some tools recently, and it has really transformed my workflow. So, I mean, if you're not getting educated about AI tools and what they can do, from reporting and analytics to analyzing and making decisions around pricing or product offerings, man, even scheduling, like it just touches everything in our business at this point.
All I'm doing is like, I just want to just the whole time you said that was just yes, 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 yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh. I literally like this whole AI conversation. I've had this dozens of times, but like exactly what you're talking about training a model to have your voice. And there's two different ways for people who are listening. Like there's two different ways to do that. One is there's physical voice, which like means that we could
We've
actually
done
just
both,
like, yeah.
and video.
And then there's the other side, which is the voice and tone. It's the way that sentences are structured, it's the analogies, it's all that type of stuff. And my company's done the exact same thing for me. And so our marketing strategist or our content strategist can write content and then pass it off to what we call Joshua Bot, and it will actually retool the content to sound like I wrote it. Um, and so we do that with all different stuff. But those are the types of elements, and that hours and hours of your transcript is what makes that AI an expert and have your knowledge. Where we see so many businesses that they open ChatGPT, not logged in on a free version, and they're like, write me a blog post about plumbing. And it just writes this most generic, most generic content. And it's like, yeah, because it doesn't know where you live. It doesn't know what your services are. It doesn't know the industries you serve. It doesn't have any of that content. Where if you actually hired a content strategist to come in, they're going to do interviews and they're going to extract a ton of information. It needs that information. It needs some source material. If not, it's just a fancy autocorrect. And
I'll
I've
take it one step further on the AI thing. Is somebody did this on LinkedIn, and it really got me thinking. And I realized, oh, we keep putting information in, and then we ask it specific productive things to give back. But that's a closed loop. You're stuck in a bubble. I'm trying to get to the point that you need some external perspective every now and then. And this exercise did it for me. Somebody put on LinkedIn an image, a graphic image that the AI had made. It said, ask your AI to create an image that represents what it knows about you. Create a graphic that represents what you know about me. And then you get this image, and it's a lot of work because most of us are using AI for work. We're not really pumping in personal, right? And then on some of the people that posted theirs, is like, oh, it's like half personal, or there's like what they eat, or maybe they play soccer or something. There's a lot of stuff in there. So that means there's a lot on the internet about them doing those things as well. And it really was eye opening to me because I asked it to do it, and I've been feeding it nonstop for 18 months, and it only knows me at work and what I do and what we do. Like it knows nothing else about my life. And I realized that, my personality online and how I project my brand involves a decent amount, a small amount, some amount of personal, thought leadership, personal beliefs, or, things I do, places I go, experiences I have. I'm trying to tell people about restaurants or, destinations or whatever, and it didn't pick any of that up because I'm not feeding that into the model. So you have to feed the model the whole human being. So, at some point here, as these models can start to scour social media and do other things, they'll pick up on that. But if you just have a closed model, you've got to give it more context about you. So it's a more well rounded version. And that's true for your brand because we have a Pepper Lunch AI agent. So fully just all it knows is Pepper Lunch, and we have a Troy one, and all it knows is me, and et cetera, et cetera. So, depending on what your purpose is and what your usefulness is, make sure that you're giving it context in other areas that's not just so tunnel vision.
And the one thing I'll add to that is those are great tools to have internally. If you're gonna release something like that publicly, make sure you test it.
Yeah, yeah. I
There
don't.
was, there's an
Nothing's public.
auto manufacturer that did this, and, people could just say, "Okay, you're now an assistant, you're gonna agree with everything I tell you. Oh, can I buy a truck for $5?" And it was like,
Right.
"Absolutely."
Yeah.
And yeah, those are great tools, and again, all of what you're saying is you guys are using this to start the process. You guys are using this to, you know, clean things up. It's not necessarily an end-to-end AI, you just say, "Go crazy on our social media," and it just manages your social media for 6
We're
months.
getting there. We're getting
It's
close.
it is, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
We're seeing the same thing, as a digital marketing agency, we're seeing the same stuff. The difference there is you still need a human to, like,
Oh yeah.
"Let's make sure this isn't."
Traffic cop. You need somebody who's
Yeah.
watching over, a minder. Yeah.
For sure. I've started using some tools, and certainly with Joshua's help, in a number of ways, having the first draft of show notes, for example, for podcasts that we put out. But yeah, learning as we go. Speaking of podcasts, you have a podcast, the Pineapple Perspective podcast. So a couple questions. What the hell are you thinking doing a podcast? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. What are you thinking doing a podcast? But also, one thing I was curious about on there is you make a point of saying all businesses are in the hospitality business. Do I have that correct? And if
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So the reason I did a podcast is I've been pressured by friends for about 4 years, 5 years to get off my butt and do a podcast. I've been a disciple of Gary Vee since 2017, who's been yelling in my ear, to be the show, not the commercial, and host. If you want to talk to bigger people, then you got to host a show and invite them on, right? Invite your customers to the show and ask them what's important to them, and then you'll learn everything you need to know to sell to them, right? So there's some real business goals there. But also being in the industry a long time, having a lot of colleagues and access to a lot of folks that I think have a lot to say. I think our industry needs connectivity. The restaurant industry before COVID was every man for himself, and everything's a secret, and don't share my recipe. And now it's really changed a lot. So I think there's a lot more connectivity and opportunity to bring more folks together. So that's the reason for getting behind it. My thesis about hospitality, the pineapple is the international symbol of hospitality. A lot of people in the modern age don't know that. It's sort of an older thing that we bring forward from the hotel business predominantly. But my belief, you hear the adage that every business is in the people business because people buy from people. People don't buy from brands or logos or whatever non-sentient industry things. But I take it the next step further is that not only do you need to recognize that you have people who sell to people. That's the role of leadership or business ownership. But that you really have to think about how you do that, right? How do you make the people feel about that experience, about that product, about that service, about your brand, about your people? What is that connection point, and how do they feel when they leave? That's really what hospitality is all about. And I ask people in the technology industry, CEOs and creators and founders of technology services and products and food manufacturers, and people who may never actually deal with other people. And I say, but how do you bring hospitality to your business, and how do you view the mindset of being hospitable in your business? And so that opens up conversation. And my goal there is that I just want people in every kind of business, whether they think they touch other humans directly or not, that they are in the hospitality business, they can bring a mindset of connectivity and emotion and feeling and making people feel good about what they do whether it's their employees, whether it's their customers, whether it's the community at large. There's a conversation there. So that's why I started it. It's why it's called the Pineapple Perspective. It's really a perspective around how hospitality can be deployed in business.
It's really good. Yeah. I definitely see the aspect, you're talking about utilizing podcast, from a connection perspective when COVID first hit and like in-person networking wasn't a thing. Like I actually had a podcast at the beginning of that to like do the same thing, to just have conversations with business owners and do that. And it was, yeah, definitely some industries just don't have any space like that. And it's crazy to me.
Well,
Some,
everybody has a point of view, everybody has a story, and
oh yeah,
you
100%.
know, you've got a perspective, they've got a perspective. So why not have a talk about it and put it on the internet? And I can assure you that there's an audience. I can't believe people listen to my show, and I'm shocked when people stop me in the halls of a conference and say, "Troy, I listen to every episode." And I'm like, "You listen to every episode of my show? Why would you do that?" It's sort of still baffling to me, but we're 30 shows published in as of today or this week, Thursday. They go out on Thursdays, but the pre stuff went out today. And on we go. We continue to have the conversation.
That's great. So, what would you say is the most important habit or mindset that really has contributed to your success?
Um, Boy, that's a big one. Just
Asking the hard questions.
Yeah, I was. I'll go back to the old days of Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. A couple things that stand out for me is my primary mindset is collaboration. So while I'm in a position to have to make decisions and own and be accountable to every decision everybody makes in the organization across multiple companies, I believe in collaboration first. I believe in the perspective of others. I believe in getting help. And when I say collaboration, I don't just mean equals getting together and having a conversation. I mean every stakeholder in the food chain of that decision, as sort of was started off in this conversation, has to be involved in as a stakeholder in all the aspects of the process. But I actually really believe in getting help and looking to others for outside perspective and for their wisdom and education. I say this a lot, that I learned very early on a phrase that if you want to run faster, run with people who are faster than you. There will be direct lessons that they will teach you, but there will be many, many lessons and tips and tricks and observations you'll make by just being in the room, just being present, just being on that run with those people. By the way, I don't run. I think it's a very dangerous and unpleasant sport. So for those of you to do, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know any runner that's never been injured. But that's just my analogy for it is, get in the room, surround yourself with people who've done what you want to do, and then ask them. By the way, don't put people on a pedestal. Most people don't put themselves on a pedestal. And if they do and they're not willing to share and support, then better for you to move on. But, I've never asked anybody above my station for insights, information, time, sharing, access, let me just be in the room, that they've ever said no. People want to help people. People want to feel empowered and important. They want to be able to share their knowledge and their experience. So just ask and don't worry about who they are and whether they're famous or whether they're successful or how big they are. Everybody gets up in the morning and puts their own pants on, one leg at a time. So
For sure, for sure. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking everybody's so successful because that's what we're sharing typically, right? That's what we're posting on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and everybody looks so good. Use the AI to do
yeah,
the instant facelift or whatever. But I do think it's important to share what I call take when we've taken the L.
yep.
Could you tell us about whether it's a mistake or a loss that you experienced uh, professionally or personally, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I don't know when I've always kind of been a heart on the sleeve kind of guy in a way. Like, yes, in the right place in the right time, you have to project and show confidence and show strength, and so that other people will feel that and not be shaken. But at the same time, I've always believed in being a whole human being, and showing many parts of me to particularly subordinates, people, in my employee, people who look up to me and look to me for leadership. I've always been willing to be vulnerable. I'll tell you, every single time I've ever been vulnerable in a public space or to an employee or to a colleague or to a superior. It has worked out better than the alternative. It has been a benefit in my life or my professional career. You just have to be honest. You just have to be your real self, because that's what people are going to respond to. You know, if you're hiding it and you're projecting and then you fail, there's big questions about why you couldn't just admit that you were going to L. And look, I L all the time. And you know, I share more about personal vulnerabilities and feelings online than I probably do about specific losses, but or things that didn't work out. But I've shared others that are. An example is I went very public when we started building our tech stack for this brand and bringing on new technologies for the restaurant on a global scale. And we picked our global point of sale provider. And I went very public. I did a professionally shot video on the floor of a conference and raised the flag, and they put our logo on their actual freaking giant booth. And we were partners, and that completely failed, that entire experience. And we never actually installed the product, and the company got bought, and it was really a mess, and it really set us back. And I put it out there. I said, look, we started down this road. We were very happy with it. Some circumstances didn't meet the expectations. The business environment changed for that company. They were bought. We've got to pivot and go another direction and pick up the pieces and move forward. So, you know, I'm not afraid to share that. And I share that so that colleagues in the industry know what's going on. They're fair warned for that circumstance. And also to say, hey, look, we don't get it right 100% of the time. And this was a big one, and we're going to pick it up and move on. And I think there's a lot of benefits to putting that out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where, Corey touched on this, but I think that's where so many people see businesses and business owners and they're like, "Oh, everything is all just amazing and they, are hitting it 100% of the time and their growth trajectory is this." And what they don't know is like, "Oh yeah, last year was rough and, this was what happened and this is where we did cutbacks and this is, they don't necessarily see that in a social media post. And I think it's so good for business owners to be transparent about that a little bit, obviously to a point. But
Yeah, I
well,
mean,
as we wrap,
entrepreneurship is really hard. and
yeah,
and you're going to screw up or miss the mark or miscalculate a lot. And if you're not, then you're being comfortable. Like, if I don't set audacious goals that I think are potentially achievable, then we won't know what we could have achieved and we won't stretch and strive. And if we don't do that, we won't experience failure. And if we don't experience failure, we sort of failure from the outside elements or forces cause us to have a moment, then we won't know how to deal with it. We will react poorly. We will make knee jerk decisions. And I see that a lot in small business. I mean, I see it across all business, but my goodness, don't make knee jerk reactions on singular events and one off circumstances. That, understand what caused the situation, understand what you could have done better to insulate yourself and your business, what you could have done planning wise to circumvent that circumstance, and then just get up and go forward and try again. This is really about, one down at a time, for a football analogy. Just forget about what just happened and take the next down in front of you and do it.
yeah, yeah. I love the saying, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah. Period.
So true. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, do you have any questions for either of us? Sort of flip the tables. Well,
Oh my
we host
gosh.
podcast, so
Wasn't prepared for that.
I know.
What's new and exciting in the business world of SCV? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a phenomenal community, a great connected community, but it's still a big community. There's still so many people doing so many things that I would love to just always know about, things that maybe aren't directly connected. My biggest connection to the business community is really through the Chamber of Commerce and my space on the board for 7 years, and just being very involved, being an advocate and an ambassador for the business community, and being a part of it by being out there with the community. But that is just one cohort. That's just one community. It's just a few hundred people out of 300,000 in the valley. So, man, if I had a question for you, since you get to talk to so many business owners, what's new and exciting? What's caught your eye and your ear?
Oh man, we've had some good conversation. I think for me, I think it's really been just the diversity of the community and the diversity of that. I've talked to people who they have gone the path of, 10 years of college and they have a professional degree, and then talk with someone else who's like, yeah, started college and that wasn't for me, started a business instead. And, seen both sides of it, seen um businesses who've had that sort of what appeared to be overnight success, but talk through the story of how they actually got there. And I think what I love about it is none of those paths are the same. And in reality, two individuals could have the same starting trajectory and end up in very different places. And that's where I think these conversations are super cool, and just love to have that because it is such a unique, diverse element, um, both across the chamber and across, those businesses in Santa Clarita. So I don't know if there's like any one thing that I'm can pinpoint, but I think it's just been just a lot of, what business owners are doing and some of the innovative elements that they're experimenting with, and things like you were talking about with, hey, we're testing out AI, or we're utilizing it, or we're doing this, and other business owners who are, moving from a fully local brick and mortar to a remote, or testing other elements of business. So I think it's super cool. I don't know, Corey, is there anything
What comes to mind is actually resources. Any given month, there are a number of ribbon cuttings that folks are really encouraged to come and celebrate a new business opening. There are so many other ways to stay plugged into the community. The city council is there. There are meetings that are open to all, and it's a great way to hear about certain developments that are happening here in the SCV. And there's also town halls. Our elected officials often have town halls, whether it's our state senator, state assembly member, our U.S. Representative in Congress. The and the folks who represent us on the city council are all very accessible, very approachable, and it makes me think of a book that was written a number of years ago by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone.
Mm,
And it was all about the way that there are so many different ways that we could fall into isolation,
Mm.
on our phones, even though we're on social media, it's not very social at the end of the day. And he underscores the imperative of community, literally and figuratively, being among each other, the people that we live near, our neighbors, right? Um, and there are so many ways to stay plugged in. What's happening in downtown Newhall is really encouraging to see. The development down there, some great, restaurants and the Lemleys and the just so many great ways to stay plugged into our community. So yeah, there are a number of different resources, and I just love seeing certain faces, again and again, and some of whom have become really dear friends. So that's what comes to mind when you ask that question. So
Well, I'm thinking about one of the next things coming to town that is highly social. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at, and that's the roller rink. I don't know about you, but my dad at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old would drop my butt off at the roller rink and
yep.
come back and pick me up 4 or 5 hours later. And we're getting a roller rink in town. It's going to be interesting to see what the nostalgic throwback style is versus what the modern roller rink's going to look like. So I'm excited about that.
yeah.
That'll be fun.
I'm so
That'll be
glad.
fun.
I'm so glad they actually, because the initial plans for that was just a floor and a roof. There was no
Yeah.
walls, and the city's redeveloped it, and now it's an actual full indoor building,
Yeah.
which means when it's 110 outside, people can still use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to the subsequent knee surgery as well. So yeah, kind of like
Well,
one
yeah,
begets
I
the
was gonna
other.
say,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, before
that's
we
awesome.
go, how can folks follow you, find more info about any new developments with Hot Palette, your local businesses, the podcast, and all the great work that you do?
Yeah, it probably honestly LinkedIn's the best place. It's where I sort of project the full version of what's going on in the world of Troy Hooper. So it's J. Troy Hooper, or just find Troy Hooper on LinkedIn. Kiwi Restaurant Partners, Pepper Lunch Restaurants, the Press Room in Old Town Newhall. Please come down, have a beverage with us, get to meet Kelly and whoever one of us happens to be in there at any given time, and just connect with your community and break bread.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, and I'll have to maybe share a beverage with you at the press room and geek out about podcasting.
Let's do it.
Well, this has been great, Troy. It's really been terrific getting to know you and your businesses a little bit better, and hearing your story. And Joshua, it's always great seeing you too, man.
Likewise. Likewise.
Yeah, great
And
to be here. Thanks, gentlemen.
absolutely. And as always, please follow, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us at the Voices of Business on social. Joshua, what's the best way for folks to follow you online?
Yeah. LinkedIn, Joshua Maddux on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome. You can follow me at Corey S. Nathan. That's at Corey, S as in Sam, Nathan, at Corey S. Nathan. We'd love to have you and other business leaders join us on the conversation. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Voices of Business.